I think that a lot of people have become disconnected with the reason why we eat.
I eat because I get hungry.
Right. And,
and I like it.
Right. But as humans, right?
Oh, okay. Oh, there's
it's
other
like the
things
whole
too?
human thing. We eat because we need to fuel our bodies and our brains.
Oh, that too.
Right. And when we don't, we get cravings to
for
eat some other things that your brains would think would have nutritional value. Sugar is what, every carb that we eat, which is everything but your animal proteins and your fats, everything else is a carb. That gets converted to sugar. And when we're eating food products that don't really have nutritional value but still taste sweet, our brain thinks it's getting nutrition,
Right.
but it doesn't. So it tells you eat again. Is that in the U.S. we have the standard American diet, which the acronym is SAD. And it is.
I was going to ask you, what is the standard American diet?
Does
that have golden arches on it?
It has a lot.
Not to pick on McDonald's.
So processed foods, right?
I know.
So it's a lot of. And so that's one of the things that we talk about. We don't talk about different eating styles except to really look at the processed foods that you're eating.
Yeah.
Those white flours, those white sugars.
Yeah,
every
that's
single
a
time
biggie.
that the hyper processed foods. So every time a food is processed, it loses a little bit of its nutritional value.
Right.
So when these foods are hyper processed, there's really no nutritional value left.
Yep.
It's really cheap and it's making people a lot of money.
True. So you mentioned in the earlier segment that part of this, because we're all busy, right?
Yeah.
So it's kind of like you want to eat right,
Yeah.
but most of the stuff that's good for you starts essentially from scratch because it's whole food,
Right.
And you have to put it together, make it somehow, get it made.
Well,
But if I'm working 5 days a week and I have like 2 or 3 kids running around, I got to get them to school, and I have a spouse that's off to work, or I'm off to work, or we're both off to work. How do you fit all that into your day when you feel like all you want to do is just grab something, unwrap it, and throw it in your mouth?
So I love frozen vegetables.
Okay.
I think frozen vegetables has helped me get food on the table in a really short amount of time that a lot of other, if I have to prepare the food myself, it's not necessarily happening. So again, it is planning, right? It's not easy, but if you make that a priority to fuel yourself and your family in a way that is healthy,
Right.
you can figure it out, and it doesn't have to be fancy.
Right.
Welcome to Master Your Finances.
Are you interested in gaining a fresh perspective on food and how it impacts our bodies and minds? Do you wish to explore nutritious recipes and receive informative handouts on making healthy food choices, understanding the nutritional benefit of nuts and seeds, and more? Marion Reinson, the executive director of Eating for Your Health, a nonprofit organization based in Princeton, New Jersey, is dedicated to bringing nutrition knowledge from clinical settings to the kitchen, where real transformation takes place. She's here to provide you with the knowledge and empowerment you seek. Well, that's awesome. I'm a big believer in the food thing, only because I've had, let's just say, not very good food habits in the past.
Okay, all right. Well,
and I think it's a constant battle because for some reason, salt and sugar seems to be tasty, and that's bad for us. So I tend to, I tend to be one of these people that has to fight all the time. So I'm like,
All
know.
right.
So anyway, maybe you can help me out. Maybe you can help me with my power. So I guess we'll start off by telling me. I guess everybody, what I've found when anybody gets into like something really like good for you, they usually have a story behind that, because anything I've done that tends to be good for me, there's usually a part of my life that I go, oh, I better go do that now.
Okay.
Or I saw somebody else, or I see, some inspiration. So what got you into this, and tell us a little bit like why you're really focused on why this is important.
Okay, so I think part of it is curiosity. Part of it is just really looking at, over the years, raising a family and looking at what does it take to make a healthy human, and really struggling with the need for there to be convenience and quick food, but also food that really fuels your body and your brain. And when my kids were younger, and I was actually my younger son was playing Pop Warner football, where you have to make weight, right? He was always played up, always big for his age, always played up. Got to a point where if he didn't make the weight, he was going to play 2 levels up, and that wasn't going to happen. So
you might get hurt.
Well, he was not going to play 2 levels up. So that was just, so
Yeah,
I
that
said,
could be
let's really look at it. And,
Right.
they don't drive, they don't
Right.
shop. It's up to me to really figure out what are they going to be putting in their body.
Right.
So I really took a look at how we were eating, what we were eating, and made some changes to just have more whole food ingredients and cooking more, but in a simple way. I'm not a chef, I'm a cook, but it has to be delicious. So started doing that, and then had lunch with a friend of mine, and we were having these delicious salads and talking about how it's great to have food, and it's sometimes salads that somebody else makes are so much more delicious than what we make. And then she asked me if I knew Dorothy Mullen, and I said no. And she said, "Do you know suppers?" And I said no. And she said, "Well, you need to know both." So she said, you go to this lunch and you help cook or you help clean and you cook together and you eat together and it's great. So I was like, all right, I'll try it. So I went and, did this, was there for lunch. It was a little weird, and I'm like, okay, it's kind of cool, but a little weird, but I get it. And, but really everything on that table was a whole food ingredient, and everything from, the salmon that really fuels your brain with the omega-3 fatty acids that a lot of the those cold seafood brings you, like all these different things, and I was fascinated, but I didn't really have like an hour and a half or 2 hours in the middle of my day to be going to these things. Right. Then I saw that there was going to be a kraut making workshop, so I was like, ooh, sauerkraut, I like sauerkraut.
Okay.
So I said, let me go to the sauerkraut workshop. So I went to the workshop, and not only was it about making sauerkraut, it was about fermented foods, it was about knife skills, and it was about gut health. And I really didn't have any kind of knowledge about gut health. My background is not in health and nutrition. It's in marketing and strategic planning. So, but I was interested, I was curious, and I learned a lot in just this one session and made my own sauerkraut, which was something that I didn't know that I was going to be doing.
Right. Cool.
And then started a gardening program that the founder, Dorothy Mullen, was running from her home garden for 6 months. It was once a month, and we would, work in her garden, which was absolutely an amazing place to be. And I learned a lot about not only the fruits and vegetables that we eat, but the herbs and spices that we eat, and really how all of these whole food ingredients really do fuel our body and our brains. Started working with Dorothy, asking her if she needed any help with the organization. Started working on building the basically the inventory of what it would take to run the organization and help her put together a strategic plan. Worked on that with her for about a year and a half, really getting granular in how the organization was run. And Dorothy, I say, was an amazing human because she passed away in March of 2020. But we would be creating an inventory of what it would take to run a program. And for her, it would be 3 hours. For a normal human, it would be about 6 hours. So, so we would put together all this information, and then Dorothy was diagnosed. Well, I was also on the advisory board, and then I served on the board. And then Dorothy was diagnosed with stage 4 lung cancer in April of 2019. Stopped delivering the programs that she was doing in June of 2019, and she was delivering about 90% of what we did. But for the last year and a half, I had worked with her, and Dorothy had worked with other people, interestingly enough, to really gather all the information about what it takes to run this organization if she wasn't there running it. So we looked at what the future would be. And at that time, I was just coming off of 5 years. I had been working with a Columbia Business School professor named Rita McGrath. And Rita she lives both in New York and here in Princeton Junction, but working with her on her marketing and developing some courses, helping her to develop some online courses and programs. And her focus was innovation and growth strategies during times of uncertainty.
Wow, that's good timing.
So I felt like for the last 5 years, I was really, immersed in that space. And here we were in this such uncertain time. And I was just getting back into my own consulting practice, and I didn't have this stable of all these clients that I was working with. So I said this would be a time that I could actually help to lead this organization half time, and then do my consulting work the other half time. So that's what I did. I put together a proposal for the board and said, I really feel like I have the skill set to lead this organization through this time, and just we didn't want to see it die with Dorothy.
Sure.
So Fiona Capstick was the board chair at the time, and she and I put our heads together and said, let's make this live on. Let's continue the legacy that Dorothy had started, which it was meeting together, cooking together, eating together, and learning together. So at that time, everything that we did was in person.
Okay.
And we would almost always cook whenever we can, or have a cooking demo, always having something to taste, because tasting your way to healthy eating is what really...
Oh, absolutely.
It works much better than talking about it. So we were doing that, and then realized that we really needed to focus on some new curriculum that was all evidence-based, and a lot of the work that Dorothy had been building upon was a counseling model. It was based on a 12-step program, was really effective, but when I started looking at the resources that we had to deliver programs, realized that we really would need some licensed clinical social workers to do that kind of work.
Right.
And so we pivoted to a consulting model, a coaching model. So really creating curriculum about the why we eat. I think that a lot of people have become disconnected with the reason why we eat.
I eat because I get hungry.
Right. And,
And I like it.
Right. But as humans, right?
Oh, okay. Oh, there's
it's
other
like the
things
whole
too?
human thing. We eat because we need to fuel our bodies and our brains.
Oh, that too.
Right. And when we don't, we get cravings to
Sure.
eat some other things that your brains would think would have nutritional value. Sugar is what, every carb that we eat, which is everything but your animal proteins and your fats, everything else is a carb. That gets converted to sugar. And when we're eating food products that don't really have nutritional value but still taste sweet, our brain thinks it's getting nutrition,
Right.
but it doesn't. So it tells you eat again. Because
Yeah,
it didn't get
the
anything.
famous sugar soda, the sugar water, right?
Yeah, or sugar and everything, just sugar and everything. So we really looked at that curriculum, and also realized that we needed to kind of put a pause on the programs, and this was January, February of 2020, and then COVID hit. So we were able to hit a pause button, like the rest of the world hit a
Right.
pause button, and worked on building a new curriculum and a new model of the Eating for Your Health program. And that was the suppers programs. We moved over to a new brand of Eating for Your Health because that really explains what we do. So we just started building curriculum around the why we eat, and that is to fuel our bodies and our brains.
Well, that's really awesome. We're going to take a quick break because I know that's a great time to pause because the whole world paused for a little bit. So we're going to take a quick break. You're listening to Master Your Finances. We'll be right back. Welcome back. You're listening to Master Your Finances, and we're talking about like good nutrition here with Marion Reinson. And interesting, I know, when the founder, Dorothy, passed away, who I met years ago, I remember when she first started the organization, and she did a chamber event, and she had us all in, and I was like, this is really awesome. The food's fantastic, and I love it. And one of the things that I always hear about, and it happens to me a little bit personally, is like, this is really good, but I don't really have time for all this stuff.
Right.
So we all want to do it, and I know we paused for COVID, quote unquote. So we got a couple things to talk about here. One is I want to just, I know a lot happened during that period. We all like paused and had thought about a lot of things during that period of time. So I guess one is, how do you address the fact that people say, I'd love to eat better, but going through the drive-through and getting something that was just fried like 30 seconds ago is pretty good, and it makes me happy for the next couple minutes, but then I feel really groggy and I can't like keep my eyes open an hour later because it's like weighting me down in ways it really shouldn't be, and it's not really nutritious. As we know, a lot of this stuff is not. When it's 90% like fat and 10%, maybe 2% like lettuce and whatever else is in there.
I would say it's not nutrient dense.
That's a kind way of saying it. But I do remember when I had the stuff that she laid out, which you point out, it was like, this is really delicious.
Yeah.
In fact, some of the best meals I've ever had were very good for you.
Right.
But it was
Right.
like, wow, this is real. Well, yeah, but a gourmet cook can do that, and that's easy for them. And so, how do we address that societally? Because it's not just for like anybody who's kind of, can go out and pretty much order and get what they want.
Right.
But also, you have to deal with the people who are a lower like socioeconomic range, where they tend to buy things because it's cheap to produce these things that are not nutrient dense, right?
Right.
It's cheaper.
It's cheap.
So how do we address these things? The time, and then the fact that sometimes people feel it's more expensive.
Sure. So when it comes to your healthy eating, we know that planning is everything. If you don't have the food to eat in your house, it's not going to happen. If you haven't found a source of convenience food that's also nutrition, it's not going to happen. I keep emergency nuts and seeds in my car for those times when I'm like, oh my goodness, it's 2:00. I really haven't eaten much, and I don't have any time for much of anything, but I will open up the nuts and seeds that I have and grab a handful of almonds or any other nuts and seeds, and it's going to hold me over till I can eat something real. And if you look at the nutritional label of nuts and seeds, it basically reads like a vitamin.
I love nuts and seeds.
There's so many.
I think
good,
they're fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, you get your proteins, you get your fiber, you get a lot of your IUMs, which is your magnesium, your calcium, your potassium, all of that. I just call them the IUMs.
I like to eat pistachios in the shell because it takes me time.
Right.
So I figure the longer it takes me to eat it, the less I'm probably going to eat.
Well,
I have to unwrap every one of them.
But it's all right because we also
That's
talk
psychological for purely.
if it works for you, that's well, if it works for you, then it works. But you can eat a lot of almonds. An ounce of almond is about 24 almonds, 24 almonds. And that's a lot of almonds. Like if you eat that many, you're going to be full. And you're going to be full for a while.
I agree. I eat a lot of nuts, so I agree with you 100%.
So people do say to me, well, but the calories, there's a lot of calories in these, in almonds, so I might as well just go get a Big Mac. And I'm like, no, a calorie is not a calorie is not a calorie.
Right.
So that's what we look at. We make the assumption, also based on the coaching model and the integrative health model, that people really do want to do what's best for themselves most of the time. Mm-hmm. But again, if you're not planning and if you haven't thought it through, then healthy eating isn't going to come easily unless you have somebody who's kind of doing it for you. But what we do know is that in the U.S., we have the standard American diet, which the acronym is SAD. And it is.
I'm going to ask you, what is the standard American diet?
Does
that have golden arches on it?
It has a lot.
Not to pick on McDonald's.
So processed foods, right?
I know.
So it's a lot of. And so that's one of the things that we talk about. We don't talk about different eating styles except to really look at the processed foods that you're eating.
Yeah.
Those white flours, those white sugars,
Yeah,
every
that's
single
a
time
biggie.
that hyper processed foods. So every time a food is processed, it loses a little bit of its nutritional value.
Right.
So when these foods are hyper processed, there's really no nutritional value left.
Yep.
It's really cheap and it's making people a lot of money.
True.
So when you're choosing to eat that way, you're really not feeding yourself. Mm-hmm. You're putting something in your stomach, but it's not really feeding you. So oftentimes you're going to be hungry within a short amount of time versus when you eat a meal that has the fiber, has the protein, has the healthy fats, and the nutrients that you need, you're not thinking about eating again for 3 or 4 hours. And that's the point of eating. Like, that's the point of eating.
100%.
Is to eat and not be hungry again. But when we're on the standard American diet and we're eating things like waffles and pancakes and bagels and muffins for breakfast, you're going to be hungry again.
Right.
Or you're going to be really tired.
Agree.
Because you get that sugar, the sugar roller coaster. So choosing those foods that keep your blood sugar stable, keep you full longer, is actually, really, that's the value meal, right? That's what's keeping you full. You're not hungry looking for something else in another hour and a half. And when you look at the nutrition label, and there's all these words that you don't understand, you don't recognize them as food because they're not.
Right. It's
up to our body to eliminate that from our body.
If it's not in English, it's probably not good for you.
Probably not?
If
If it comes out of a lab,
if the word's more than 20 characters, it's probably not good
if
for you.
you don't recognize it as food, you know what? It's not. It's
Probably not.
And then our kidneys and our livers need to filter it out. So you're really
true.
taxing your system. And we do have an epidemic in this country of type 2 diabetes.
Yep.
A lot of starch-related diseases, your IBS, your celiac, there's just a whole slew of new diseases that we didn't have 50 years ago.
I know what I did, but I'm going to ask you this question generically. Like, when I had a really poor diet for a while, and then I switched. So I fully agree with everything you're saying. But one of the struggles that I had initially was, well, I'm used to having a bagel every morning for breakfast. I'm used to having, a Big Mac for lunch, and I'm used to having this for dinner. I'm used to having this.
Yeah.
And I'm used to my routine. You get into a habit.
Sure.
Right? So it becomes more, not that you're necessarily hungry, but, it's 11:30, it's time to do this.
Right.
Oh, it's 3:30 or 5 o'clock, it's time to do this. It's time to do this. And you get into this routine, and I found that difficult to break. And I'll tell you how I did it, but I'm curious about what kind of strategies you offer to people to say, okay, I know I shouldn't be eating these things in the morning, but I'm hungry, and that helps me, and it gets me to my next level, whatever,
Right.
lunch or dinner, whatever the case is, right? Whatever my current habits are.
Sure.
So how do I start breaking? Like, you can't. My feeling is you can't break them all. Like, you can't change 100% overnight because you're going to be miserable.
Right.
So what do you recommend?
So one of our pillars is called How You Feel as Data. So when you eat something, and really, so if you become mindful about what you're eating, how you're eating, when you're eating, and we ask people to start doing experiments with themselves. Eat certain things for your first meal of the day and see how it works for you. See how it makes you feel. Do you feel alert? Do you feel tired? Are you hungry in an hour? What works for you? And again, just because it's what we have been kind of programmed to eat here in this country doesn't mean that we need to eat those breakfast foods.
Right.
So, I've never really been a breakfast food person. When I was growing up, I would drive my mother crazy. We came to, an agreement that I would have like a half of an English muffin with a piece of cheese on it because I didn't really want to eat
you like
breakfast.
to fast for breakfast.
Well,
huh?
I'm not,
No, didn't interest
but
you.
it's just the way that my body works.
Right. Yep.
So we also look at nutritional harm reduction, which is, like you said, nutritional harm reduction. Nutritional harm reduction. So
Okay.
harm reduction is a term that is used in the addiction world, moving people away from those substances that are harmful.
Gotcha.
And the foods that we eat that are filled with processed ingredients and filled with the sugars are harmful to us.
Right.
So we ask people to just make small changes, little incremental changes to subtract those foods that aren't really fueling your body and your brain and maybe adding a few that are. It might be adding, having a handful of berries in the morning, eating an apple instead of the cookie, having a whole grain product instead of the white bread product. Just really looking at different ways to feed yourself that works for you, because what works for me and what works for you might be completely different.
Right.
I might be fine with having oatmeal with a spoonful of nut butters, but for you, you want eggs with vegetables, or whatever it is that works for you. Just pay attention to what works for you,
Right.
and you don't have to be listening to what we've kind of been told over the years that you need to have a breakfast of whatever this American breakfast looks like, because it really is not.
Bacon and eggs.
Well, I mean, bacon and eggs. We also say if you can recognize it for what
hash
it
browns
was in nature, right?
Right.
It's closer to, it's not
Right.
so processed. So eggs are a great protein.
Yeah.
I love eggs, and whole eggs, not egg whites, whole
Right.
eggs. They've got
Me too. I love
the
eggs, too.
fat. They're cheap. They're versatile, and they've got B vitamins. They've got selenium, which is really important for our immune system. If you eat 2 eggs, that gives you like 50% of your daily allowance of selenium. So don't skimp on the eggs. Eat the whole egg.
Won't skip on the eggs. We're going to take another quick break now. You're listening to Master Your Finances. We'll be right back. Welcome back. You're listening to Master Your Finances. I'm here with Marion Reinson, and we're talking about food and how, I guess, it's incremental changes, right? So it's just a matter of doing little things. And I guess 2 things that I personally did that helped me. One was, what I started doing is I just started buying more good food.
Yeah.
and I ate the same amount of bad food originally. And so I felt fuller, and then eventually I go, well, I'm really full because I ate like 3 bananas or whatever it was, you know. And then so I said, then I started eating those first.
Right.
And then I started being more full, and then I started eating. I still ate it, but I would eat less.
Right.
Like instead of 2 bagels, maybe I had 1 bagel.
Right.
So I just started off by adding the good stuff on the end.
Yeah.
As kind of like the dessert or the extra, because then I felt like, oh, I still had my normal meal. But over time, I started realizing, because what I found very interesting is my taste started to change.
Exactly.
I became much more sensitive to sugar. Like now, if you give me like a triple dark chocolate cake with whatever on it, I'll actually it'll shock my system, because before, like 10 years ago, I'd have been like, give me another slice, you know?
Right.
But it's very different. And the other thing that I did that helped me a little bit is sometimes when I'm hungry, I realize that I'm actually just thirsty. So what I'll do is drink like a glass of water and wait 5 minutes and say, well, am I really still hungry?
Right.
And maybe half the time I am, and other half I'm really not.
Right.
And so that just slows me down a little bit, because, and I started actually doing what you said, is like, oh, it's whatever, 8 o'clock, I'm supposed to eat breakfast, and I'll actually ask myself, am I actually hungry?
Right.
And sometimes I'm yes, and sometimes it's no. And I'm like, well, I'll just wait till 10 and see how I feel at 10.
Right.
And so I'll just delay and listen to more about like how I'm feeling right then. And it's not always, your body doesn't work on the exact same clock every day, is what I personally found.
Absolutely.
Right. It does vary. Like sometimes I'll be hungry earlier, sometimes it'll be later. So those are just little things that I personally did. I don't know if,
No,
anyway,
that's so the developing the taste for healthy food is, again, another one of our pillars.
Okay.
So when you're used to eating those foods that have actually been engineered for you to crave them,
right,
and want more,
and that's very true. I've seen specials on this. It's crazy.
It's real. It's these people work in a lab to have the crunch and the salt and the sweet, so that it triggers our brain in a way that drugs do.
It's exact same thing. I saw this special. I was like blown away by how detailed these the ones I was watching was on snacks. These different kinds of snacks, and they're literally engineered to make you want another one.
They are, which
is a little bit scary.
No, it is
to me.
Well, people are getting sick. So I mean, that's what we know, is that people are buying the 99-cent snacks.
Right.
And they're developing type 2 diabetes.
Right.
They're developing, like I said, these other digestive diseases that we didn't have before.
That's true. Before the age of processed food, we were actually healthier baseline, which is interesting.
Well, we ate whole food ingredients. People had to cook things, and if you didn't cook something, you found somebody who would cook something.
Right.
So and we ate a lot of soups and stews and things like that you could really just put together, what you have in your house, and make something out of it. And if you were fortunate to have those herbs and spices that you can also use to make it delicious, then that's what we ate. But then we had World War II, when we had everybody. We had tens of thousands of people that we needed to feed out on the battlefield.
Right.
There was no refrigeration. There was no real easy way to be preparing the food for the masses in that way. So we had these technologies to develop these processed foods.
Yeah, like M&Ms. That's true. That's one of the things they said. M&Ms was sent out because it had the coating was to send into battle. Yeah. It was.
Oh, no, I believe it.
It is.
There was
there's
probably a good reason for why we did this to begin with.
Everybody eats it.
But now and then after the war, we were like, oh, we have these convenient foods.
Right.
Let's sell them to the public. And again, they're cheap.
True.
And people, the big food companies were making a lot of money on them. So that's where we. We need to really go back to those whole food ingredients, and work with foods that don't trigger us, right? And like you said, am I hungry or am I thirsty? It takes about 20 to 30 minutes for your stomach to tell your brain that you're full.
Yeah, there's a lag there, I know, for sure.
Yeah, so so giving yourself time after you've eaten to see if you really want that other helping. Same thing with, when you start to look at how foods make you feel, how you feel as data, and how it works with your biological individuality. Once you realize that you eat that piece of cake and 3 hours later you are ready for a nap in a really a big way.
True.
And you can't afford to do that. You may not want to do that. The other thing that we see where, a lot of us have a job where we can decide we're not going to eat till 10. But when you're dealing with people like nurses and teachers,
Yeah, they have set breaks and things.
they have, it's such a challenge
Yep.
for them to be eating healthy because
Yep.
so many times they will just grab and eat whatever they
won't
can
even
fit
get
in
their
their
break. It'll be
pocket.
like, "Oh, we need you
They
back
don't.
right now," and,
exactly. They
yeah.
don't. And teachers and nurses are the highest rate of oh my goodness, what is the word? Not biometric. The bariatric surgery.
Oh,
the
God.
bariatric
Oh, really?
surgery. Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. Because they really don't have control over their schedules, and they are constantly having bagels and pizza
not good.
and donuts and muffins in the break room.
Yeah, because it's all readily available. So you mentioned in the earlier segment that part of this, because we're all busy, right?
Yeah.
So it's kind of like you want to eat right,
Yeah.
but most of the stuff that's good for you starts essentially from scratch because it's whole food,
Right.
And you have to put it together, make it somehow, get it made.
Well,
But if I'm working 5 days a week and I have like 2 or 3 kids running around, I
Yeah.
got to get them to school, and I have a spouse that's off to work, or I'm off to work, or we're both off to work. How do you fit all that into your day when you feel like all you want to do is just grab something, unwrap it, and throw it in your mouth?
So I love frozen vegetables.
Okay.
I think frozen vegetables has helped me get food on the table in a really short amount of time that a lot of other, if I have to prepare the food myself, it's not necessarily happening. So again, it is planning, right?
Right.
It's not easy, but if you make that a priority to fuel yourself and your family in a way that is healthy,
Right.
you can figure it out, and it doesn't have to be fancy.
Right.
Like, we also do a lot of cooking demos where we show people how easy it is to put together a saute. Like,
Right.
I do a lot of sautés. So you name your protein, whether it's a chicken or tofu or whatever whatever you want to do.
Right.
And you just saute it in some olive oil, garlic, and onion. And then you can add some bags of frozen chopped vegetables. Do different seasonings depending on what it is that you're making. I mean, like I said, I do a lot of sautés. So if
Right.
I'll use sesame oil and then some other Asian spices and a lot of cilantro, and that's my Asian stir fry. I'll do the same thing, only I'll add chili powder and some other spices, and that's my Taco Tuesday saute. Same thing with adding a lot of vegetables to a pasta sauce. So I'll add. When I was doing my panic pre-COVID grocery shopping, and
You and a couple billion other people.
I know, and so I'm in the frozen food aisle, and I'm looking. I'm like, there's nothing left, right?
I'm sure.
There was a bag of frozen chopped collard greens, and I was like, all right, well, I guess this is what we're eating because
Okay.
that's so. And I added it to whether I guess it was maybe a Taco Tuesday things,
Right.
saute. I add it to everything now.
Oh,
Because it
interesting.
doesn't really change the flavor,
Right.
profile, but it gives you the fiber and it gives you the dark leafy green, so you get the micronutrients from that. And like I said, it doesn't really change the flavor. So I'll add it to a pasta sauce. I'll add it to an Asian stir fry. I add it to a lot of foods just to boost the nutritional value of it.
Right.
And then also making enough to have leftovers. I know a lot of people say, "Oh, I didn't do leftovers." I'm like, I live on leftovers. Like, I have leftovers for breakfast all the time. I have leftovers in my freezer. So it's planning. If you're going to be making a meal, try and make 2. And then just easy recipes. If they can't be complex. I mean, baked chicken thighs.
Right.
I call it like you bake the crap out of them. You just
Bake the crap
you just put them in the oven and you wait until it's like they're nice and crispy
Yeah.
and they're delicious. So, but it's easy. So but it also, I know people have a challenge with what their kids will and won't eat, but they also do tend to mirror what they see. So
That's true. So some of this is just training and learning how to make, because you always hear these things where there are simple recipes that are good for you. And I think if people are used to just, pouring out a box of cereal and throwing milk in and eating it, then that's really what they know. But it's like, it's really not that much more difficult. It takes only, I'm no gourmet cook by any means, stretching the imagination, but
neither am I. I mean, I'm a cook.
but you put 2 or 3 things together. and you either bake it or blend it or whatever, and it's done.
Yeah.
And you're talking a couple of minutes.
And if you use
At the most.
fresh
Right,
herbs,
it's better.
fresh herbs just like boost the flavor. And
Yeah.
every single herb and spice that we eat has a medicinal value. Every single one.
Right.
So adding them to your food not only boosts and livens up the flavor, it really does fuel us in a meaningful way. So it really is planning, it is experimenting. But it is just, trying not to make things more complicated than they
Right.
need to be, and looking at making sure that you have a clean protein, you're using the healthiest fats that you have access to and can afford, and making sure you're eating plants because that's the fiber. If you're not eating plants, you're not getting fiber, period. And when people talk about the convenience of a cereal and milk,
Right.
I look at what's in our cereals, which
Yeah.
are super processed foods,
Yep.
and they're basically human kibble.
Human kibble. Okay.
They're human kibble. They're sprayed with vitamins that
Yep.
our bodies don't even absorb.
Right. Agree. Well, we're going to take another quick break. You're listening to Master Your Finances. Welcome back. You're listening to Master Your Finance. I'm here with Marion Reinson, and we're talking about eating healthy.
Yes.
And just before the last break, you actually said that cereal is like human kibble. And I'll tell you a quick story, which is not directly related to humans, but we have a lot of dogs. We have 6 dogs at home. And one of them was getting, like, they were starting to get things like, allergies, and like the paws were getting all funky where they would scratch them and they licked, and this kind of weird things going on. And we kept changing dog foods. And what we found out was we'd go buy a good brand. It would get sold. They would change the formula. Then it wouldn't work any longer. So we gave up after a few years. And we had this one thing where we couldn't find out. One of our dogs, Mickey, who's now, I guess, 15, he was having these, like, he would like pass out. He'd have these like episodes where he would like, first time it happened, my wife thought he died.
Oh.
Because he would like went limp, and then a few minutes later he'd come alive. Nobody could figure out what it was. Spent let's just say a lot.
Invested a lot.
Let's just say a lot. A down payment on a house kind of thing. So we tried to figure out. We couldn't figure it out. So we said, let's just change the diet. So we started actually making our own organic, natural food, and researched everything that's good for the dogs, and literally put it all in there. So they get salmon, they get beef, they get turmeric, they get all kinds of vegetables, they get blueberries, you name it, anything we could come up with. Anytime my wife, because she's a dog trainer, so anytime she'd find something that was good for them, she'd go, all right, that's going in the formula. So, and they're all extremely healthy. And so we actually spend quite a bit of money on the dog food, but we spend almost zero on the vet.
Right.
So just from a pure economic standpoint, it's insane how much healthier the dogs are than they were. Not that they were sick.
Right.
It's just they would have these weird things happen.
Right.
That we couldn't explain. You spend all this time on these testing and things like that. In fact, we had one dog, and the other thing that threw us was we had one dog who passed away early from, he had these like internal growths. And so we were like, and he was only 9, and our dogs typically live quite a while, like at least 12 to 15 years old. Okay. And that was, I think it was kind of that plus the episodes was like, all right, we're done. We're not going to rely on third parties. We're just going to go ahead and make our own stuff. And so that really kind of elevated our personal stuff. I said, well, if we're doing that for the dogs, I guess we should really pay attention to our own diet even more. So ironically, the dogs kind of led the movement. Not that we weren't always thinking about it, but that was kind of like, all right, this is really pretty serious. And the other thing that I learned about over the years, which I guess was talked about, but I guess I'm researching it more and more, is the microbiome, and how, like, basically if your gut is healthy,
Right.
everything else stems from that, which actually makes a lot of sense to me, just anecdotally. And I'm like, oh, that makes sense. If everything because that's where everything's kind of processed and starts, and the nutrition comes out, and that's kind of where the whole manufacturing process for what we're doing is going on. And the more I thought about that, I go, that actually makes a lot of sense. So when I'm eating, I'm attempting to, on my good days, and there are bad days.
We all have them.
Let me be straight about that.
That's we
I'm
also
no
talk
angel
about
by any means.
we talk about non-judgment. That's another one of our pillars is non-judgment.
I definitely have my off days. There's no question about that.
Sure.
But on the majority of the time, I'm thinking, okay, because I know if I feel bad, it actually makes you feel much better, right?
Right.
So that's the interesting thing is it takes a while before you figure that out and before you notice it. But you definitely notice it over time. You have a higher energy level. You actually sleep better.
Everything works better.
Everything. And so anyway, that's my little story about the dog. So I know it's not related to humans
But it
directly,
is.
but I think we follow the same kind of profile.
It's about the caregivers taking
Yep.
better care of those they're caring for than they often do for themselves, right?
And that's the problem. We have almost like too many choices.
Well,
Like if the choices were you can only eat like back in the farmers 200
Right,
years ago,
right.
you had to go out and grow it,
Right.
or raise it,
right, and
then
I mean that
was it. You had 3 choices. They were all healthy.
That's the way it was, from the 40s, So yeah, so it's
now you go to Uber Eats and you can have anything in your house within a half an hour.
You can
Anything, pretty much.
Right. But should we?
Right, that's
There's
the
that
problem.
should word. That
That's
should
the
word.
problem.
So one of the things that you also said was, so yes, the food might be more expensive, but we are saving money in other ways, right?
Right.
Or it might be more expensive, but we are healthy.
Correct.
So when you become ill, it's not cheap.
Yeah.
It's not cheap. And when you look at things like eczema and, like a lot of these different health issues that people have, a lot of it really is food related. And it might be something that could be healthy for me, but not healthy for you. So identifying what are the triggers that cause you to have your dis-ease, right?
Right.
So the story with the dogs is just, it's the same model with humans. When you make the decision to eat in a healthier way, a lot of the issues that you were having goes away, the inflammation. And then when you talk about your gut health, so your gut starts from your mouth to your anus, and basically it's a tube that runs through your body that's from your brain and touches every single one of your organs. So if
Right.
your gut is not healthy, then chances are there could be an issue with one of the other organs in your body. So, and our gut needs to be fed with the good bacteria. So, we there's trillions of bacteria in our bodies. And when you're not eating the food that is feeding your gut, and you're not eating the food that's really fueling your body, which are your macro, your plants, and basically your plants are feeding your
Right.
gut. Fermented foods. Almost every culture has a fermented food. They have a yogurt, or they have pickled vegetables, or different
Yeah, why don't
fermented
you delve into
foods.
that a little bit? Why are fermented foods like a good thing? So just
it's
explain
it's the
it. Yeah.
bacteria. So
Yeah,
when
okay.
my foray into sauerkraut, who
There
knew?
you go.
I like
Right.
sauerkraut. Like
Oh,
I
I do-
just
I do too.
and it's one of those
I like it better now that I
polarizing.
found out it's good for me.
Well, so just don't heat it because you'll kill the bacteria.
Oh, all right.
So
Okay.
you want it at room temperature. So I kind of always craved sauerkraut when I was younger.
Okay.
And now I'm like, all right, I kind of get why. I also like pickles, right? Like,
I love pickles.
fermented pickles.
Yeah.
So our bodies, need bacteria to process all like the food in our system. And when you have those hyper-processed foods, the bacteria that are being fed are not the good bacteria. They're a bad bacteria. So you need to feed your body the good bacteria so that it can compete with and overtake the bad bacteria. And again, what you eat matters.
That's
so,
true.
when you're eating food that if you're not getting enough fiber and the food is taking a while to be digested through your system, it's fermenting.
Okay.
And that's when you get bloated. That's when you get gas. That's when you feel dis-ease in your digestion, is when your food is not really being digested properly. And it needs that good bacteria to do that. So feeding your gut with just a little bit. I mean, one thing that we know is that bacteria likes to grow, right? It likes
Sure.
to, and it will replicate whether it's the good or the bad. So feeding it the good, just a little bit at a time, just a forkful of sauerkraut, or 2 ounces of a kombucha, or a yogurt is fueling and feeding your gut in that meaningful way. And then the prebiotics are the leafy greens that also are providing those good bacteria. So when people are placed on an antibiotic,
Yeah, you kill them.
you do. So you need to
They
feed
forget
them
that
again.
part.
You need to feed them again.
Right,
So
you
that's
gotta
what
forget that. You are killing the
you
biotics.
are killing. You
That's what
are
you're doing.
killing the bacteria. So making sure that you're replacing what you
Right.
just killed off.
Right.
And just looking at it as a supplement. Like I look at certain foods as supplements. So so your the fermented foods, that's a supplement. A lot of our tinned fishes, like our sardines and salmon, they're also that's a supplement, right? There's so much to them. Our nuts and seeds, it's a supplement. So many of the vitamins and minerals that come in the bottles, we don't absorb. what we're doing is creating really expensive urine.
Right.
And when I look at people like, well, should I buy this? I'm like, just eat better food. And it's, your body absorbs it, and that it's able to get the nutrients out of the food. It's not able to get the nutrients out of a pill.
Right. Yeah. And you mentioned briefly the inflammation, which I think is a huge issue.
It is.
And I think we underestimate most of it, just how important it is to prevent inflammation.
Yes.
I mean, I look at it as like well, I know some people have EVs, so forget the EV owners. But for people that have an internal combustion engine, if you took the oil out of the car, how long is it going to run? Like if you have the heat and you're going to rub everything, and so inflammation in your body, it's like it could be everywhere. Every part of your body.
Inflammation is what causes the dis-ease, right? So,
Right.
I mean, inflammation is what a tumor is. Inflammation is what diabetes is. Inflammation is like all of these, digestive disorders are all inflammation driven. And one thing that we know is that sugar fuels inflammation.
Right.
And so if you're going to look at ways to reduce inflammation, it's really looking at where your sugar comes from. And if for everybody that's listening, if you just remember one thing about what I said, is that 4 grams of sugar is a teaspoon. We don't, as Americans, we usually don't think in terms of grams. Mm-hmm. But a 12-ounce can of Coke has 39 grams of sugar, so that's almost 10 teaspoons of sugar in a can of Coke. Oftentimes there's 16 grams of sugar in a little cup of what I used to think was really healthy yogurt.
Right.
And now I look at my sugar, and it's like, if I'm going to have sugar, I'm going to pick out where it's going to be. And it might be in something that's delicious, in a small serving of something, but I'm going to choose it. I'm not going to get it out of other food products that are in like sauces or dressings or things like that are filled with sugar and that's what fuels inflammation. Same thing with a lot of the oils that are used in restaurants. So, the canola oil shows up on like the naughty and nice list all the time. And, some people won't ever use it. Again, it's what you can afford, and canola is an affordable oil. It's better than some of the other seed oils that are out there. But the way we cook in our home kitchens is not the way that the oil is being treated in a restaurant. So if you're eating out at restaurants a lot, you have no control over what's going in your food. You don't know how much sugar, you don't know how much salt, you don't know what they're doing with the oils, but oftentimes they're heating them to a very high heat and reusing them over and over and over, which is what creates inflammation in our body. So every dis-ease that we deal with is usually inflammation driven. And if you can figure out how to reduce those foods that are causing inflammation, and we know sugar is one of them,
right,
then that's going to help.
Well, thank you, Marion. We appreciate you coming on today. You're listening to Master Your Finances. You can like and subscribe going to masteryourfinances.us. Thank you very much.